What is up, guys? TEJ here, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing the brand new ST-230 line of drivers from Mizuno. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so the ST-230 line of drivers from Mizuno, new for 2023, and the fifth variation of the ST or Speed Technology project from Mizuno. In this year's lineup, we've got two drivers currently. We've got the STZ, which is going to be your, I would say, neutral, the more fade bias style driver. And then you're going to have the STX, which was originally supposed to be marketed as more of a draw bias driver, but after tour testing, Mizuno really feels like it's just the more workable of the two options. And what's really interesting is on tour right now, there's actually a 50-50 split between the STZ and the STX, which means if you thought this was a draw bias driver, I can promise you it really isn't, because a lot of tour players will not play a driver that wants to go left. So this just seems to be offering a little bit more workability for those guys out on tour. Although these do look relatively similar to that of the ST-220 lineup, there's one key change, and that is going to be this blue Core-Tech chamber on the front of the sole. It is a TPU, sort of elastomer style insert that Mizuno feels is their key to unlocking a little bit more ball speed in these drivers. It's going to help bring a little bit more energy transfer back to the golf ball, which is big because that was sort of the issue in the ST-220 lineup. Additionally, the Core-Tech chamber helps bring a little bit more weight closer to the face, which should help drop spin a couple hundred RPMs. And again, an issue maybe with the ST-220 model, but something they have really looked into and fixed with the ST-230 lineup. With regards to a face, you are going to have a forged 2041 Beta titanium face, which is a little bit different than the sort of commonly used 6.4 titanium face. A little bit more complexity with regards to thickness on these faces, which should help offer a little bit more ball speed all across the face and especially on off-centered hits. The STZ is going to be offered in 9.5 and 10.5 degree lofts, while the STX is going to be offered in 9.5, 10.5, and 12 degree lofts. As you move up in loft with the STX, that is when it becomes a little bit more draw bias. If you're somebody who wants to hit a little bit bigger of a draw, highly recommend going up in loft with the STX. From a stock shaft perspective, you actually have a lot of options from Mizuno. You have shafts ranging all the way from a UST Helium Nanocore 4, which is going to be a lighter ladies flex shaft, all the way up to a Project X Hazardous RDX Smoke Green 6.5. So pretty much anything you need to fit your swing speed and your style play is going to be available through Mizuno's website. From an adjustability standpoint, you're going to have Mizuno's quick switch hosel on these drivers, which offers 4 degrees of adjustability, 2 degrees up in 1 degree increments and 2 degrees down in 1 degree increments, and it also offers an upright lie angle position as well. Now, in terms of trying to decide which one of these two drivers is going to better suit your game, Mizuno has put a big emphasis on trying both before jumping to any conclusions. You heard me talk about it earlier. There's a 50-50 split on tour between these two drivers, and I really couldn't agree more about making sure you try both. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth later in the video, but I originally came in thinking I would be more of an STZ guy. I was not really thinking I would like the STX, but I kind of came out of it realizing that the STX actually suits my game just a little bit better. Now, having said all that and given you guys some background on these two drivers, let's go ahead and dive into my opinions on the ST-230 lineup. Now, in terms of looks, I think that these drivers look phenomenal. I love how the black contrasts with the Mizuno blue. You also have these bits of carbon fiber on the sole and the crown as well, which look really good. Very high quality and premium, but at the same time very sleek and fast looking. A nice balance there. Now, do I wish that this was more of a matte carbon fiber? Yeah, probably. I think that that would look a little bit better in the sunlight. But at the same time, these have a ton of shelf appeal, and I think for Mizuno to have a successful driver launch, they need to catch the eyes of consumers at retail, and these will do just that. At address, the STX sits very square to my eye, a little bit deeper face profile. Meanwhile, the STZ is square to slightly open, I would say, at address, and a little bit shallower face depth. I think it's really interesting that they're offering a square face and then a more open face driver. Usually we don't see that from OEMs. Usually we'll see a square face and then a more closed face driver. So it's really cool to see that they're sort of trying to separate themselves, having these two different options for different styles of players. Moving on to sound, I really like the sound of these. It's hard for me to call it sort of a muted sound, but I would just say it's not very loud or tinny, just a nice solid pop off the face at impact. The feel of the ST-230s are really, really solid. Very hot out of the middle of the face and not harsh at all on mishits. A great feeling driver in my personal opinion. And honestly, I would argue that these are some of the best feeling drivers on the market currently. Moving on to workability, and that is where I think the STX shines very, very brightly. The Z, I found like it favored the right side of the golf course a lot. I kind of struggled to turn it over. The X, on the other hand, I could hit it high, I could hit it low, I could draw it, I could fade it. It did pretty much everything I wanted it to do, and that's exactly what I look for in a driver. So from a workability perspective, I am a huge fan of the STX 230. Moving on to forgiveness, and this is the area I think is number one for these drivers. Just incredibly forgiving. I would put them in the range of a G425 or 430 max in terms of forgiveness. Honestly, it was absurd. The first round out, I hit every single fairway. I cannot remember the last time I did that. Probably haven't done it in at least 5 years. And there was one specific shot where I toe sniped the living crap out of it with the STX. Thought it was out of bounds, looked up, and it was down the left side of the fairway, cutting back. Just shockingly good from a forgiveness perspective, and I truly, truly think that these are some of, if not the most forgiving drivers on the market, which is something I wasn't expecting to see, but really, really pleasantly surprised to see with these Mizuno drivers. All right, so those are my opinions on the drivers so far, but let's go ahead and get into the data, the GC quad numbers with these drivers in comparison to my TSR3, and we'll go ahead and start with the STX. So starting with the STX, we've got 170.8 miles per hour ball speed, launch 12 degrees, spin 2792 RPMs, carry 290.4 yards. The STZ, 170.4 miles per hour ball speed, launch 12.9, spin 2773, carry 291.8 yards. Moving on to my Titleist TSR, we have 171.2 miles an hour at ball speed, launch 11.7, spin 2396, and carry 300 yards on the dot. All right, so what do these numbers mean? Well, we'll go ahead and start with ball speed. Pretty interesting to see that these are holding up with one of, if not the fastest driver on the market currently, the Titleist TSR3. I think that's a big testament to the Core-Tech chamber in these new drivers. It shows that it is working and it is helping people gain a little bit more ball speed. And even with the fact that these do not have a very far forward center of gravity, the ball speed is still holding up, which is very cool to see. Now, launch and spin-wise, these definitely launch and spin a little bit more than my Titleist TSR3. At the same time, from a center of gravity perspective, I would probably put these more in the range of a Titleist TSR2, so it's tough to compare when they're not quite the exact same style of driver. As far as carry goes, I saw that these were around 8 to 9 yards shorter than that of my Titleist TSR3, which can really be attributed to the spin rate. But at the same time, what I think you give up in carry distance because of the spin, you gain in workability, accuracy, and forgiveness. All that being said, because I liked the STX so much on the golf course, I wanted to see if we could drop the spin rate, maybe pick up a couple yards of carry. So I went ahead and dropped the loft by a degree, and I got some new numbers for you guys, and I'll put those on the screen now. Ball speed 171.8 miles per hour, launch 11.2 degrees, spin 2647, carry 294.8 yards. Now looking at those numbers, that is where I would genuinely consider this a contender against my Titleist TSR3. Because although I lost about 5 yards of carry, I gained ball speed, I gained forgiveness, workability, and accuracy as well, which is really, really important to me. I am willing to give up those 5 yards to hit 2 or 3 more fairways over the course of a round. I'm a really big fan of how this has performed, and I'm genuinely considering it a contender for the driver spot in my bag. All right, so what do I think about the ST-230 drivers from Mizuno? Well, in case you can't tell, I am a pretty big fan of them. Now, I cannot say that one of these is better than the other. They are just simply different, and it's going to depend a lot on player preferences. With that being said, I finally feel like Mizuno has a pretty complete driver lineup, and I could really see these in the bags of free agents on tour, which I never thought I would ever say about a Mizuno driver, but these are really, really good. In my opinion, these are going to fly under the radar this year just because of all the other marketing hype of other companies, but they really shouldn't. Good looking, fast, forgiving, and accurate are all words that come to mind when trying to describe these drivers, and I think that's just a testament to how complete this ST-230 lineup really is. Retail price on these ST-230s comes in at $500 US, which is around $50 to $150 cheaper than some of the other big OEMs on the market currently. And considering its performance, I think that is a very fair deal, but I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think that $500 is a fair retail price, or do you feel like it should be priced just a little bit lower? Comment down below and let me know what you think. In terms of a rating, I'm going to give these a 9.3 out of 10, and the only thing holding them back from being ranked even higher is just the fact that they're a little bit higher spinning. I think if you're somebody who spins it in a pretty normal range, like me, or spins it pretty low, these are going to work really, really well. If you're somebody who struggles with too high of spin, that's where these might struggle. So it'll be interesting to see if they drop an ST-230G model at some point later this year, maybe next year, that encompasses the same characteristics of these drivers, but is just a little bit lower spinning, because I think that would be really cool to see. Guys, that's a video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a like. Comment if you have any questions at all. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click that notification bell, and also make sure you're following us on our other socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.